Hello everyone, my name is Zelle, I'm from Fraunhofer SIT, and today I would like to present to you our work analyzing and securing some IP with formal and practical methods. In this presentation I will show to you attacks on an application layer protocol of automotive networks and countermeasures against our findings. First of all, a short introduction on automotive networks. Automotive networks recently changed from buses like CAN or MOST and their signal-based communication towards a dynamic, service-oriented communication via automotive Ethernet. For this purpose, some IP has been introduced to the AUTOSAR standard. Scalable, service-oriented middleware over IP, or short SUM-IP, is a flexible and bandwidth-efficient communication protocol that offers a service-oriented interface, allowing applications to communicate with each other without any knowledge of the network architecture. For this purpose, the middleware SUM-IP offers a service discovery protocol that allows to propagate and find services in a network. Most often, security protocols like MACsec or SESO-C protect some IP middleware communication in vehicular networks. The service discovery works the following. A server S can offer a service via broadcast communication. For this purpose, S sends an offer service message with a specific service ID. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The service offer also contains further information about this service, for example the version, a time to live value, and an endpoint which contains the IP address and the port. In this example, the IP address is 10.0.0.2 and the port is 3.0.5.0.9. Every client can now request this service and get a response by the server who offers this service. For our security analysis, we formally modeled some IP over a secure channel in a symbolic model and tried to verify multiple security properties using the Tamarind prover. One of these properties was the liveliness with regard to offer service messages. This property says that whenever a client accepts an offer service message, an honest server previously has sent a message. However, this very weak property is not given if an attacker is able to send and receive messages over the secured channel. This is possible since we assume an attacker is able to compromise a single device in the network. One example for this was a recent hack of Tesla vehicles, which starts with compromising the infotainment unit of a car. Based on this and other findings in our formal model, we could develop 3 types of attacks against some IP communication. I would like to introduce one of these attacks to you in this presentation. The goal of the attacker is to get into a man-in-the-middle position between already connected or associated servers and clients, and then freely manipulate the communication. In the first step, an honest server sends an offer service message via broadcast communication. An attacker in the network who has compromised one of the control units now reacts to this offer service, sending a stop offer message. This message has the same service ID and the same endpoint as the offer service message. It indicates to a client that the server is no longer available, and the attacker afterwards broadcasts a service offer message with the same service ID but with its endpoint IP address and port. The client then sends the request not to the original server, but to the attacker, and the attacker can, for example, forward this message to the server. The server generates a response, sending this response to the attacker, and the attacker can now manipulate the response message to the client. Two further techniques are introduced in our paper. One attack on offer service messages, and another more complex attack against the publish-subscribe process of SumIP. To evaluate if our presented attacks work practically, we implemented the attacks. The attacks are then tested against two implementations of SumIP: vSumIP, the open source reference implementation of SumIP, and the Automotive testing and development framework CAN-OE. We tested against two example implementations, a request-response communication as well as a publish-subscribe example. We successfully attack all implementations on application layer only, so without manipulation of UDP, TCP, IP or the MAC layer. For this reason, low-layer security protocols do not prevent our attacks. Recently, some approaches had been made to make SumIP more secure. A first approach from 2016 was the introduction of an intrusion detection system for SumIP. This, however, introduces false positives or false negatives. Second, a Tesla-based protocol was introduced, which secures broadcast communication of SumIP with delayed authentication. However, this changes the process and message flow of SumIP. And last, in 2020, Iorio et al. Suggest Secure SumIP, which allows an asymmetric encryption of group keys, sending these in response to a signed find service message. This approach needs a unicast communication to initiate the key exchange. For these reasons, we propose two security extensions ourselves. A symmetric approach with a central authorization server called SESO-AS, and an asymmetric approach based on restricted certificates called SESO-RC. Our asymmetric approach, SESO-RC, extends offer service messages by a Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Every offer service message is signed with the private key of the server's certificate, which states that the server is allowed to offer this service. The client can verify the signature and respond to the offer service message with his first request. This is extended with the client's signature, and it's part of the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. With a common secret between client and server, both now authenticate the following requests and responses. Note that the Diffie-Hellman part of the server can be used by multiple clients, so the broadcast characteristic of the offer service message remains unchanged. Our second approach, SESO-AS, runs a bit different. The offer service is no longer broadcasted to the network, but directly transmitted to an authorization server. This message contains an encrypted session key as well as a message authentication code to verify the integrity and authenticity of the offer service message. The authorization server then checks whether the offer service message is valid and by an authorized server. In case all checks are passed, the authorization server broadcasts the offer service message together with the session keys encrypted for every client who is allowed to consume this service. A message authentication code allows each client to verify the offer service message and their encrypted keys. Once the keys are decrypted, every client can regularly request the service, and the server can respond to these requests. Both request and response are authenticated using message authentication codes. Again, we formally verified the key exchange of both SESO-RC and SESO-AS. Both are secure against our presented attacks. Moreover, SESO-RC has the property of forward secrecy. To analyze whether our solution is also applicable in automotive networks with small embedded devices, we analyze the performance of our approaches. First, we measured the CPU instructions needed to perform our cryptographic operations. The graph here shows that our symmetric approach in red and green clearly outperforms both our asymmetric approach in orange and blue and the best approach from literature, secure SUM-IP, in gray and brown. Furthermore, our asymmetric approach is only slightly worse than secure SUM-IP. However, it introduces individual key agreements between server and client, as well as perfect forward secrecy. Moreover, we analyze the impact of our protocol towards the network. Our asymmetric approach SESO-RC, here in blue, does not need any additional messages, while our symmetric approach in orange needs one additional message sent to the authorization server. Secure SUM-IP, here in red, needs one additional message for every client to initiate the key exchange. Moreover, we measured the additional bytes transferred for every cryptographic extension. A full key exchange of our symmetric approach SESO-AS needs the least number of additional bytes. Moreover, we can see that broadcasting of Diffie-Hellman keys, which can be used by multiple clients, reduces the overhead of SESO-RC in comparison to the overhead of the asymmetric approach of secure SUM-IP. For this reason, our approach SESO-RC is better if more than 3 clients are involved. To conclude our talk, we found 3 different attack methods based on our formal analysis of SUM-IP. These attacks work even if security measures like MACsec or SESO-C are present, since these does not secure the routing which is introduced by SUM-IP on application level. We practically verified the identified attacks in 2 real-world implementations. Next, we proposed 2 security extensions for SUM-IP. SESO-RC, which offers perfect forward secrecy and is more flexible, and SESO-AS, which has a much better performance. We formally verified that both introduce a secure key exchange on the application layer and evaluated the performance on an embedded device. With this evaluation, we have shown the feasibility of our extensions in an automotive network. I look forward to answer your questions in the upcoming live session, or if you have questions later on, please contact me via mail. Thank you for your attention.